The other thing I wanted to talk about is people who have apnea. That behavior during the day masquerades as so many things. People call them drug addicted. I'm not saying they're not, but you can look that way because you're so sleepy. People are making judgments about you as a person because your sleepiness and your daytime fatigue is out of control, and that can make you isolate, bring helplessness, a feeling of helplessness, and just utter confusion about what is going on with me. Because people come to see a sleep doctor, and what they're talking about is not their sleep. Heck, they don't know what's going on in their sleep. They just want to come and talk about why they feel so bad during the day. So there are social consequences to apnea as well.
Right. I know I had someone who managed a plant, and he called me. He had actually hired a private investigator because he had an employee who fell asleep all the time. And they had a picture of him at a football game asleep. And in the middle of a loud football game. So at that point, they said, well, something medically must be wrong. He had apnea, he was treated, he got better. So, yeah, he had no idea what was wrong with him.
Right. So that just goes to show that if your coworkers are saying things about you that you know aren't true,
they may be saying things about you that have nothing to do with apnea.
Okay, but, you know, at least check with a doctor. And then also that the last thing I want to touch on is depression, which depression is tough on its own. But sleep problems, how does lack of sleep impact depression?
Well, it works both ways. Most people who have depression have some sleep disruption. And classically, it's early morning awakenings. They'll just wake up for no apparent reason.
And can't go back to sleep.
Can't go back to sleep. And that's part and parcel of having depression. But if you have depression and if you have disrupted sleep, your mood, your depression will be worse if you don't have a fitful night's sleep. So if depression is present, if your sleep is disrupted from any cause, it's going to make your depression worse. Another thing is pain control. The more fitful your sleep is, the less you will hurt the following day. Again, treating the sleep problem is not going to make the pain go away, but it'll make the pain problem more manageable.
And there's one more thing that I just learned about that just blew my mind, and that is you hear about people who go to the bathroom at all times during the night. And the first thing that happens in my mind is, well, that's what the problem is they've got a prostate thing, they've got a this thing and that thing. I just recently learned that the arousals caused by apnea can actually make you aware of needing to use the bathroom when if you were asleep, you wouldn't be. So you think you got to go because am I on track there?
No, that's correct.
Oh, good. But I thought that was the strangest thing, because who would ever put that together? Well, arousals causing you to want to get up and use the bathroom. Because some people, once their apnea is treated, they don't do that anymore.
Right. I mean, invariably, they have to go to the bathroom less. I've seen, over the years, I've seen a number of people referred by urologists, and it's a middle-aged guy. He's swollen prostate age. He goes to see the urologist. The urologist says, what's wrong? He says, I'm getting up all night long to go to the bathroom. He's examined by the urologist. He doesn't have anything wrong. He comes to see us. And intuitively, what's one of the first things you think about when you wake up? Is my bladder full or not?
Exactly.
And you're going to become hyper aware of it.
Right. That's so great, because that just gives you one more benefit to getting your sleep apnea treated. I do want to ask how internists and general practitioners, how are they aware of the sleep apnea, sleep disorder thing, or are they getting special education on that? How can we let them know, or does that come in their medical training to look for these things?
I think their awareness is much, much higher than it was when I first started doing this. Yeah. And a significant number of people are sent to us by their primary care physicians. Often a clue is going to be the patient who goes to see his physician, and he says, I have no energy. And his physician evaluates a number of different common medical problems. I don't know which one. Say, do you snore? Yeah. Are you sleeping enough? Yeah. Well, he has something wrong with his sleep. Or someone who has poorly controlled, we see a lot of people poorly control high blood pressure, and their physician is really, really trying to get it under control, and it's not working. And that's another tip-off.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, they're a lot more aware than they were.
And I'm so glad that they are. Well, about the high blood pressure thing, your treatment can be so healing for you, the sleep apnea treatment, that you actually have to bring your blood pressure medication down So
Right.
you have to check with your doctor while you're being treated for your apnea, because as you're getting well and your body is recuperating, the blood pressure may go down.
That's right.
You want to reduce your medicine, you have to go check with your doctor.
As a matter of routine, I tell people if they have apnea and it's being treated to get their blood pressure checked the first week or two, because invariably it's going to be lower. Like I said, their medication might need to be adjusted.
Exactly. Okay, so how come a general practitioner can't schedule a sleep study?
In order for us to be accredited as a sleep disorder center, they need to be seen and screened. A sleep study is very expensive, and there's more than one kind of sleep study. Some people spend the night to see what's wrong. Some people spend the night to be treated for their apnea. There's some daytime testing that we really have to do. We think they're dangerously asleep, and we actually have to end up restrict them from driving. So it's not a matter of like ordering an x-ray.
Right.
There's a multitude of different things of different tests that have to be, that you can have done, and the fashion in which they're done is different for each patient. So for that reason, they're just screened by us. And some people don't need a sleep study.
And so the thing you're going to do is, after they tell their doctor that they don't feel good during the day and he can't think of anything else, and he said, do you snore? Then they're going to come see a sleep specialist for an office visit.
Right. And sometimes patients are referred out to someone else. We're kind of a general evaluation of things that could affect sleep. And some I'll see patients that say, why don't you sleep? I hurt. There's nothing else going on that I can ascertain by evaluating. Well, then they need to go see someone about getting their pain treated.
Right.
Or they're doing something habitually that's keeping them from sleeping. So not everybody ends up getting a sleep study, and often they're referred to another specialist who take care of whatever that problem is that's keeping them from sleeping.
Exactly.